David Chang's Momofuku wasn't just a restaurant, it was a game changer. Back in the mid-2000s, it flipped the rules on fine dining. Forget the white tablecloths and stuffy vibes. Instead, Momofuku brought bold flavors, rebellious energy, and dishes like ramen noodles and pork buns that had people lining up around the block. It didn't just serve food, it sparked a global obsession. David Chang became the rock star of modern cooking. But behind the scenes, it wasn't all pork buns and glory. The relentless drive for perfection took a toll. As the Momofuku empire grew, so did the cracks. Controversies, closures, and the brutal hit of a global pandemic that almost brought everything crashing down. So how did one restaurant rise to such dizzying heights, only to teeter on the edge of collapse? Let's dive into the fascinating story of Momofuku, a tale of innovation, pressure, and resilience you don't want to miss. David Chang's story begins not with culinary royalty, but with struggle and reinvention. Born to Korean immigrant parents, Chang's path to success wasn't linear. After dropping out of college, he pursued a career in golf, only to realize it wasn't his calling. His pivot to food came from a deep sense of frustration and a desire to channel his creativity. Chang trained at the Culinary Institute of America and worked in renowned kitchens like Tom Colicchio's Craft, and in Japan absorbing techniques that would later define his signature style. When he opened Momofuku Noodle Bar in 2004, it was a gamble. The space was tiny, the budget limited, and New York City's restaurant scene was already hyper-competitive. But Chang wasn't interested in conforming. Fine dining in the early 2000s was often rigid and exclusive, catering to an elite clientele. Chang flipped the script by offering something different, unapologetically bold flavors in an unpretentious setting. The menu at Momofuku Noodle Bar was deceptively simple: ramen noodles, pork belly buns, and a few small plates. But the flavors were unforgettable. The pork buns, in particular, became an instant classic. Soft, pillowy bread filled with rich, fatty pork and sharp, tangy sauces. Chang combined his Korean heritage with global influences, drawing from Japanese, Chinese, and American cuisine. The result was a menu that felt both familiar and entirely new. The restaurant quickly gained a cult following. Food critics and diners alike were enamored with Chang's fearless approach. Momofuku wasn't just about food. It was about breaking rules and challenging norms. Chang refused to cater to pretension. Instead, he focused on the essence of hospitality, making people happy. Chang's personality played a significant role in the restaurant's early success. He was brash, outspoken, and unapologetically honest. A refreshing contrast to the polished personas often associated with celebrity chefs. His candor resonated with a younger, more casual audience who were tired of the exclusivity of traditional fine dining. By 2006, Chang expanded his vision with Momofuku Sambar, which pushed boundaries even further. The Bosam pork shoulder, a communal dish meant for sharing, became an icon of the restaurant's ethos. Bold, delicious, and accessible. Sambar's success solidified Chang's reputation as a chef unafraid to take risks. Momofuku was no longer just a restaurant. It was a movement. Chang's rise coincided with a shift in the culinary world, as diners began to value authenticity over formality. His approach inspired a generation of chefs to rethink what a dining experience could be. The success of Momofuku Noodle Bar proved that David Chang was onto something extraordinary. By 2006, with his flagship location thriving, Chang set his sights on expansion. His second venture, Momofuku Sambar, opened in New York's East Village, and it was an immediate hit. Unlike Noodle Bar, which focused on ramen in small plates, Sambar introduced a more electric menu with global influences. Its namesake dish, the Bosam, was a massive pork shoulder served with lettuce wraps and condiments, designed to be shared. This emphasis on communal dining was a game changer, creating a sense of intimacy and excitement around food. Sambar wasn't just a restaurant, it was a playground for culinary creativity. Chang and his team used it to experiment with bold flavors and unconventional combinations. The result? A dining experience that felt thrilling and unpredictable. Food critics were raving and diners couldn't get enough. Chang's reputation as a culinary maverick continued to grow, earning him accolades and a loyal following. With sambar thriving, Chang launched Momofuku Co. in 2008. Co. was a stark departure from his previous ventures. Offering an intimate prefix tasting menu, it was Chang's first foray into the world of fine dining. But true to form, Co. wasn't a traditional fine dining experience. The minimalist decor and counter-style seating defied the pomp and ceremony usually associated with multi-course meals. Co.'s innovative dishes like a chilled foie gras torchon dusted with lychee and pine nut brittle earned the restaurant 2 Michelin stars, cementing Chang's place among the culinary elite. As Momofuku expanded, Chang wasn't content to stop at savory dishes. In collaboration with pastry chef Christina Tosi, he launched Momofuku Milk Bar. Milk Bar redefined dessert with creations like crack pie, compost cookies, and cereal milk soft serve. Treats that tapped into a sense of nostalgia while pushing creative boundaries. Milk Bar quickly became a beloved institution with lines out the door and international acclaim. Chang's empire wasn't limited to New York. He ventured into new markets, opening restaurants in Toronto, Washington, D.C., and Sydney. Each location had its own personality, reflecting the local food culture, while staying true to the Momofuku ethos of bold, boundary-pushing flavors. Momofuku Saibo in Sydney, for example, embraced Caribbean influences, earning critical acclaim and a devoted following. Beyond the restaurants, Chang's influence grew through his ventures in the media. In 2011, he co-founded Lucky Peach, a quarterly food magazine that became a cult favorite. With its edgy design and unfiltered voice, Lucky Peach felt like an extension of Chang's personality. A mix of irreverence, passion, and intellectual curiosity, the magazine tackled everything from ramen culture to food politics, further establishing Chang as a thought leader in the culinary world. But with success came challenges. Rapid expansion stinged the company's resources, and Chang himself struggled to balance his growing responsibilities. The pressure to maintain Momofuku's innovative edge while managing multiple locations began to take its toll. Still, the empire kept growing, and Chang became a household name. The question was, how long could this momentum last? As Momofuku grew from a single restaurant to a global brand, David Chang found himself navigating uncharted territory. Expansion brought fame, wealth, and influence, but it also came with immense pressure. Chang, always candid about his struggles, later admitted that the success of Momofuku came at a personal and professional cost. In the high-stakes world of fine dining, expectations were relentless. Every new restaurant had to outdo the last, every dish had to be groundbreaking, and every critic's review carried the weight of the brand's reputation. Chang's perfectionism, a driving force behind his success, became a double-edged sword. He demanded excellence not only from himself, but also from his staff, fostering an environment that some described as inspiring, while others called it toxic. Momofuku's kitchens were notorious for their intensity. Chang's leadership style, while visionary, was also known for its volatility. He would later admit in interviews and his memoir, Eat a Peach, that he struggled to manage his temper, often lashing out at his team during moments of stress. For many employees, the experience of working at Momofuku was both exhilarating and grueling, a trial by fire that left some burned out. Mental health was another battle Chang faced. As the empire grew, so did his feelings of imposter syndrome. Despite his accolades and adoration of food critics, Chang often felt like he didn't deserve his success. He struggled with depression and anxiety, which were exacerbated by the constant demands of running a business. In one particularly dark moment, he admitted to contemplating suicide, highlighting the immense toll his career had taken on his mental well-being. Financial pressures also loomed large. While Momofuku's success seemed unstoppable, the reality was more complicated. Expanding into new cities meant navigating unfamiliar markets, high operating costs, and the challenge of maintaining consistent quality across locations. Not every venture was a hit. Restaurants like Momofuku Nishi in New York and Momofuku CCDC in Washington, D.C. faced mixed reviews and ultimately closed their doors. Adding to these challenges were allegations of workplace toxicity, as the restaurant industry began reckoning with issues of harassment, burnout, and inequity. Momofuku wasn't immune to criticism. Former employees came forward with stories of long hours, high stress, and a culture that sometimes prioritized results over well-being. Chang, to his credit, didn't shy away from these critics. He publicly acknowledged his shortcomings as a leader and expressed a commitment to fostering a healthier work environment. Despite these struggles, Chang's honesty about his challenges earned him respect. Unlike many celebrity chefs who project an image of infallibility, Chang was refreshingly transparent about his flaws and failures. This vulnerability resonated with many in the culinary world, who saw him as a symbol of resilience. By the late 2010s, the cracks in the Momofuku empire were becoming more apparent. Chang was no longer the scrappy underdog disrupting the food world. He was now a leader grappling with the weight of his own success. And as the next chapter would show, the toughest challenges were still to come. The turning point for David Chang and the Momofuku empire came with the COVID-19 pandemic in early 2020. Few industries were hit as hard as the restaurant business, and even fewer were prepared for the sudden and total shutdown of in-person dining. For a global brand like Momofuku with locations dependent on bustling urban crowds, the fallout was swift and brutal. Chang faced an unprecedented challenge: how to keep his restaurants alive when their very purpose, serving diners, was no longer possible. Revenues plummeted overnight, and Momofuku's workforce, which had grown to over 800 employees, was at risk. Chang was forced to make gut-wrenching decisions, including laying off much of his staff. Despite his efforts to provide severance packages and ensure employees were supported, the layoffs highlighted the precariousness of the restaurant industry, even for a brand as celebrated as Momofuku. Several locations, including Momofuku Nishi in New York and Momofuku Saibo in Sydney, were permanently closed. Chang later admitted that some of these closures were long overdue, as certain restaurants were already struggling financially before the pandemic. COVID-19 simply accelerated the inevitable. In the face of these challenges, Chang pivoted. He leaned heavily into media and innovation, areas where his brand could still thrive despite the pandemic's restrictions. His Netflix series, Ugly Decisions, became a platform for exploring the cultural and emotional significance of food, earning widespread acclaim for its depth and honesty. Chang also released his memoir, Eat a Peach, during this period, offering readers an unflinching look at his life, career, and mental health struggles. The book became a bestseller, cementing his reputation as a chef unafraid to bare his soul. Meanwhile, the Momofuku brand began exploring new revenue streams. Chang partnered with meal kit and delivery services, bringing signature dishes like his iconic pork buns and ramen to home kitchens. The company also expanded its line of consumer products, including pantry staples like chili crunch and soy sauce, which became hits among home cooks. These initiatives not only kept the brand afloat, but also introduced Momofuku to a broader audience. Chang's leadership style evolved during this period. The pandemic forced him to confront the flaws in his management approach and the unsustainable nature of the restaurant business as a whole. He became an advocate for systemic change in the industry, calling for better labor practices, financial transparency, and mental health support for chefs and staff. By 2022, the Momofuku empire was leaner but more focused. Chang embraced reinvention, shifting away from rapid expansion and instead prioritizing sustainability and creativity. His restaurants returned to their roots: bold, unapologetic food that brought people joy. The fall of Momofuku empire, while painful, became a catalyst for growth. For David Chang, it was a reminder that success isn't just about building an empire. It's about adapting, learning, and finding meaning in the journey. From a tiny ramen shop in the East Village to a global culinary powerhouse, Chang redefined what it means to innovate in the restaurant world. But his story is more than just about food. It's about resilience, vulnerability, and the courage to confront failure. Momofuku's rise and fall reveal an important truth: success isn't permanent, and reinvention is often the key to survival. Through his triumphs and struggles, Chang has shown that even in the face of adversity, there's always room to rebuild, rethink, and reignite your passion. What do you think of David Chang's journey? Do you consider him a revolutionary chef or someone whose ambition went too far? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know what your favorite Momofuku moment is. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more stories about the people who shape our world.